Thank you, Dr. Sagrika Roy Bhatia. Architects make houses. The writers made poetry. The scientists made discoveries. The teachers made them all. I feel we more focused on competition, job creation, and a degree rather than human beings at heart. Are we making them more hungry for knowledge, hungry for learning? So if we are, then we are probably on the right track, because it's no more lecture time. To my mind, it's no more a lecture time. Now it is research time. It's a self-learning time and self-educating. An opportunity for children to become a word called self-reliant, self-teachers. A good teacher teaches, but a great teacher transforms. Teachers could ask the students, what are the 5 wonders of the world sitting at home? If they say it's Taj Mahal or the Eiffel Towers or the Great Canyon, etc., then they're going wrong. The 5 wonders of the world are the sight, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the touch and the smell. All the 5 senses are the wonders of the world. To larger general knowledge, are the children reading the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Gita, the Mahabharata, etc.? Are they learning a new language? I think this is the real challenge. So if I would list out 5 things which teachers could make the children do in the current distance learning is, number 1, make them read. Read what? School books and others. Make them do. Do what? Ask them, what would they like to do? Third, what is it that they can say? Ask them to say. Whether they put it in writing, ask them to say. What do they think? Are they writing? What do they think? And finally is, how are they preparing themselves for the changed circumstances? So think, read, do, say, think, and prepare. So while the teachers are educating the children, how about retraining of the teachers? Unlearning.
Dr. Kiran Bedi, wonderful, and few points that you've actually made are really out of the box. That is learning the Upanishads and the Vedas, but I think first we educators need to get into it before we bring it to our children. Before we bring it to the classroom, we have to do it. And I think our education system, the B.Ed degree that India offers, should have these kind of spiritual texts, such value-based text, I think, as a paper, as a subject. And this is where we need to work. And if teachers are enlightened, of course they will without doubt create assets and not liabilities. And also, as you rightly said, because teaching is such a profession that it's like the double-edged sword. It's a teacher can make, a teacher can break. So it is always very difficult for we teachers to handle children, and only when we are exposed to talks like this by leaders like you, who have had an experience of dealing with children, as you rightly said, children of the prison and children who've been a liability. So I think hearing you, all of us here, educators, will take back home a lot of information, a lot of insight, and yes, as you said, developing curiosity in the learners. Very important. So here it is, educators, for you. We open the platform now for your questions. Kindly type your questions in the chat box, and we shall ask ma'am about an answer for your question. Okay, Harish Chaudhary has to ask that how can we imbibe values in children? So what is your take on it, Dr. Kiran Bedi?
Well, I think some of these are mentioned. While the teachers get retrained, why not do retraining of the teachers? So while the teachers are educating the children, how about retraining of the teachers?
You mean unlearning, relearning?
Unlearning to learn.
Yeah, unlearning.
And keep learning. And there is no teacher who does not learn every day. A teacher is a great teacher who remains a student himself or herself. Refreshes learning, and very good teachers do a lot of research work before they go to teach again and again. They refresh, because every book gets outdated from the time it's published. It's outdated. So therefore, you have to continue to move beyond the book.
Very true. Okay, we have a person over here asking us that what are the main lessons that you have taken during your tenure of working at New York?
In New York?
Yeah, New York. Because that's a foreign land, I believe that's why the person is very interested in knowing what were your takeaways and how is it a cultural difference working in India and working in New York?
It took me time to adjust to New York. I took a lot of time to adjust to New York. I felt very homesick because it was just too far away from me and I was a very homebound girl. So therefore my experience is because of the nature I had. Since I was very home oriented, I was absolutely out of home. Secondly, there was no family for me. So I'm also family oriented. So my experiences, it took me some time to adjust. Third, the diversity of cultures takes you time to learn each other because everybody's nuances are different. So therefore, again, it takes you time. When you go into a new society, you have to either go advanced, learned before, or you learn by losing time. I think I learned by losing time. The United Nations did not give me an induction time. United Nations just plunged me into the work I was in. I think that is a step missing. When you call people from all parts of the world and come to United Nations, I think they need to have some probation period to get used to, get acclimatized. Let's say the word acclimatized. And then given a time to understand each other's cultures, because I was right at the top of my office, a director of international peacekeeping, and I had about more than 40 nationalities working with me. Each was different. Each African country representative was different. So it took me I think I learned by trial and error. The fault was not mine because I had not been given. So my life in New York taught me that it's very important that when you go up for a new assignment, you have an attachment period. You have an induction period. So that you don't start from day one and say, I know everything. And also that you don't make mistakes, you minimize mistakes. So my lesson from New York was, when you go out to learn into a new territory or a new area, the person must get an induction time.
Right. Also, ma'am, the write-up says that you have very wisely used the power, and you've used the power to correct, to prevent, and to get things done. And to get things done in our country with, in a democratic country like ours, it's not really easy. So what were the challenges you faced? If you could just elaborate on it, few of them.
The challenges is in the quality of human beings, quality of people who are in public service. And they're all products of the best of the universities and colleges. They are not self-driven. And anybody who is not self-driven in public service performs minimal. And in crises like this, when you need maximum performance, suddenly how do you help change the gear? COVID requires top gear. And most of the people were not even in the first gear. So how do you do that? How do you move them from first gear or even stationary? Some of them were even stationary. So from stationary to moving to running, getting onto the steering wheel, and then coming to top gear. I think that's the biggest challenge for this country today. I do not know about others, but you see how wonderfully well Germany turned around. Germany was already as a class, as a country, in almost top gear. And we were in many places just not even stationary. So I think the biggest challenge for administrator is, how do you take people out of a stationary motion to starting to move, and from move to walk to jog, from jog to run, and from run to sprint, and from sprint to a marathon. I think that's a very big challenge, because the kind of people we produce from college and universities They are not self-driven. They're not spirited. It's not self-driven. Lack of enthusiasm for public service. It's need for a job, not enthusiasm for public service.
True. We have another question. This will be the last question by Subrata Chattopadhyay. He asks, how can we imbibe the socio-emotional learning in this COVID phase in the children?
I think you need to have a chapter of Indian literature. You need to have Indian history, Indian national movement. Take them back to the roots. And our roots are very deep and very rich. If we go back to our own roots, we will be all at peace. Yoga is our root. Explanation of yoga. So I think the explanation of the Gita, explanation of Mahabharata and the Ramayana, it's got all the management and the character traits. Everything can be analyzed as a story. And since we are all integral, we all understand it. We don't need to import it. For Shakespeare play, we do Shakespeare reading. Instead of Shakespeare reading, let that become the optional reading for people to choose, certainly English literature. I'm a student of English literature. But if I had Indian literature at that time, I would have chosen Indian literature and would have been much more knowledgeable about my own civilization. So I would say, give people better choices and give people Indian literature and Indian ancient history.
Perfect.
As part of regular education.
Right. We have time for another question. It says here, we've got Geeta Sridhar, who says, how can we make government schools more effective and accountable and bring down the gap between private schools and government schools?
Make the government schools attractive. Make the government schools attractive. And schools are not attractive only by building. That's a wrong concept. School is attractive by the teachers. If the teacher is outstanding, teacher doesn't even need a room. Teacher will be followed by the students even for under a tree.
True. Very well said, Dr. Kiran Bedi. And yes, of course, a good teacher teaches while a great teacher transforms is a very, very strong point taken by you, by we educators today present in this particular session. And last but not the least, what you have informed us about the five sensory organs as the five wonders is, I think, an excellent takeaway from you. And we really thank you very much for giving us your precious time and addressing all the educators. And I'm sure whatever you have said today with the kind of conviction in your voice, I think that itself is very, very, very motivating for all of us. And